Hi, everybody. This is Lee, and I'm looking at an open letter submitted by the Green Party of New York. It's an open letter to Chuck Schumer and Kristen Gillibrand opposing the Israel Anti-Boycott Act, which is S720. And according to the Green Party of New York, this bill targets individuals and groups, including the Green Party of New York, that support the call by Palestinians for boycotts, divestments, and sanctions in order to pressure the Israeli government to grant Palestinians fundamental human rights and to end the illegal Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories. It is important to note that boycotts are peaceful political acts and not armed violence against a state or people, and are invoked when political or business leaders refuse to address persistent injustice. And so the Green Party of New York State explains itself. And I can say that boycotts are generally seen as a type of nonviolent civil disobedience, and that they have been used in the United States for other issues. And I'm going to get to those. But I'll read the first paragraph. As co-chairs of the Green Party of New York, we write today in opposition to S720, the Anti-Israel Boycott Act. The Green Party is committed to defending the civil right of freedom of speech, including the right to protest. We are also advocates of a foreign policy based on self-determination and human rights for all oppressed peoples. As such, S720 deliberately assaults the former and is diametrically opposed to the latter. Thus, we urge you to withdraw your co-sponsorship of S720 and to oppose the bill in committee and on the floor. And so the bill would prohibit U.S. persons from supporting boycotts conducted by international organizations against Israel and its settlements in the Palestinian occupied territories. The bill would also extend penalties for simply requesting information about said boycotts, and that violators would be subject to a minimum civil penalty of $250,000 and a maximum criminal penalty of $1 million and 20 years in prison. And so this is a wholesale criminalization of political speech and an attempt to remove the First Amendment protections from a type of speech that is explicitly protected due to its controversial nature by the Bill of Rights. And so it also attempts to restrict the use of a political tactic with a long successful history in the United States, and that it's been used by marginalized and oppressed groups to pressure those with power. The boycott, also divestment and sanctions. And then there are many examples. I can think of three. That the Boston Tea Party was a boycott of British tea because of the taxation without representation, and that the colonial settlers went so far as to not only boycott and refuse to buy, but then also to trespass and destroy the inventory. And that was considered by most people a type of patriotism to the concept of independence and pro-American stance. And then also the concept of boycott has been used with the civil rights movement, such as the Montgomery bus boycott, a refusal to patronize a service that was second class in its delivery. And then also boycotts, divestments, sanctions were used against the nation of South Africa, and that those were opposed by persons such as Ronald Reagan, who considered the freedom fighters terrorists, including Nelson Mandela himself, who later became president of South Africa, despite Ronald Reagan's attitude. But that was another example of a successful use of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions. And then more recently, with the fossil fuel infrastructure expansion, the concept of divestment has been used. Hopefully, boycott might be added to that, but divestment from the fossil fuel industry has actually added pressure. And so we see several examples of boycotts being used in the United States, but however not criminalized, except in this instance. And so that's interesting. But anyway, I'll post a link to this letter and the page it's on by the Green Party of New York State, so people can see themselves what the issue is surrounding this attempt to criminalize what people perceive as free speech. Say good luck.